Hi, I'm Emily Freitag, co-founder and CEO at Instruction Partners. And as part of our AI in Action Learning Tour, I'm excited to be talking today to Dacia Toll, one of the co-CEOs of Coursemojo. As we do with all of these, we're going to hear a little bit about Dacia, a little bit about the product and how it's used in classrooms and any evidence of impact that they have so far. So, Dacia, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of this tour. Start by just telling us about yourself, your history, what brought you to this moment. Why are you building Coursemojo?
So this is my 27th year in education. I was a middle school teacher, principal, ran a network of schools, and been going hard after opportunities and outcomes for young people now for a long time. And am proud of the success I saw as, in leading schools, but the work is hard, and it certainly feels like after COVID, there was a step function in the diversity of learners, the degree of challenges, the changed talent landscape, everything everybody who's listening to this video already knows. And one of the things, I think two big steps we've taken in the right direction are the adoption of high quality instructional materials, and then the work of organizations like Instruction Partners to really align professional learning to those high quality instructional materials. And I still believe in it, but I heard enough teachers say to me, am I supposed to teach the rigor of the curriculum or the kids in front of me? And the answer, as we all know, is both, but it is very challenging to do. We have not consistently gotten the great outcomes we all wanted from these big investments we've made. Then enter AI. And to be clear, I would not be doing what I am doing. I'm inherently an ed tech skeptic. If it were not for, I think we're now working with electricity that we did not have before. And you still have to go build great products. And there's a whole bunch of next level details that really matter, which is why I'm glad you're going on this learning tour and helping making it visible to everybody. Because most of what we wrestle with are pedagogical choices, not powered by sort of technical capabilities. But I now think we can create much better ed tech products. I'm motivated by that, and I'm deep in the weeds on it.
Tell us the name of the schools that you led and just a little bit about their outcomes, just as part of your background.
Oh yeah. So my whole first chapter of my career is I was the original principal of what became the Achievement First charter network up in the Northeast. So I did that for 6 years, and then that became a network that I co-led or led for 20 years that was ultimately 41 schools in Connecticut, New York, and Rhode Island. And we had some great outcomes. When the Common Core reset the table, they dropped back, and then we spent 5 years, I think, improving more than any other charter network in the country, and ultimately getting to where we had completely closed the achievement gap. So our kids from Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven, Providence, Brooklyn, New York were doing as well as wealthier suburban students. And I say that in credit to them, and of course the teachers who taught them, but really, I believe in this. I believe young people are incredibly capable. And then the way it really plays out is we tracked college graduation over time, and we had 5 times the college graduation rates
I didn't know
of,
that statistic. That just gave me
yeah,
goosebumps.
yeah. So yeah, definitely life-changing work. And I'm still going at it now, but in a different way.
Yep. Great. So tell us about Coursemojo. Tell us what job it is trying to do for students and for teachers, and what problem you hope it solves.
Yeah, so education's so complicated, and we want everything to be great. But in a world of forced choice, I think most of us would say the first thing is to get core tier one instruction to be as effective and engaging and accessible for all learners, and frankly, aligned to our vision for what we want it to look like. So I care deeply about academic outcomes, but we, as a parent, as an educator, we want more than just that. We want a certain kind of learning experience. We want it to be a social learning experience. We want kids to work collaboratively. We want beautiful full class discussions about rich, complex texts. We want lots of authentic writing. We want joy.
Mhm.
And we want, and so part of what I'm resisting in our sort of ed tech is the typical silent solo paradigm, supplemental as well. It's
Mhm.
always existed somewhat disconnected or off to the side. So the best thing about what we're doing and the hardest thing about what we're doing is we are actually embedding in tier one, and specifically in, the sort of biggest bet we all make in that context, which is the high quality instructional materials. So what we're trying to do on the student side is to have them, once you've chosen quality texts and tasks, the name of the game is how much thinking, reading, and writing can we get kids to do? Like how much engage can we get them to engage in it? One thing I should say up top that I know you know, but others might not, we're just focused on reading and writing.
I was
I,
going to
I
say,
have a
any grade
separate,
span?
we have been focused on middle school grades, sort of 5 to 8. Next year, we're going to be grades 3 through 10.
Great.
And just as a quick aside, because I know the kind of learning you're trying to do, I know I'm pretty opinionated that I think specialized products are going to do right by kids and teachers in a way that generic products are much less likely to.
Hmm.
Because while I think this AI is electricity, it's nowhere near good enough to just say, hey, what do you think of this student's answer? And what's the next just right question in light of everything we know about the science of reading?
Hmm.
In my experience, and we have tested it, no matter how much you try to prompt engineer your way to get
Hmm.
answers to those solutions, it's just not getting there.
Hmm.
Not in the way that I think we all care about in terms of the
Hmm.
quality. So
So
to
just
go
to
back,
mirror that back, you're saying like you're not going to do math because you think math would be a really different project. You're just trying
I
to
think
really get
it's
great at literacy.
I think it's 50% different. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that some of the core intuitions don't exist,
Hmm.
but I think the way to leverage the power of AI is to combine it with a significant amount of authored content
Hmm.
and a significant amount of discipline specific expertise.
And design thinking
Um,
essentially
yeah.
around the choices. Okay.
And, then we could get into the whole thing. Like, I think math is even more visual. I think kids have to actually be writing it. So some of the better math products are taking pictures of student work. I think there's a whole set of things that are
Yeah.
meaningfully different. But to go back to what the problem we're trying to solve. So in a typical classroom, teachers kind of have two choices. They can either do, I think they're so worried about the diversity of learners that exist and whether these complex texts and tasks will actually be accessible to them, that most of them default to holding the whole experience full class or a lot of it. And so they'll read the text together and then they'll ask the questions, but they'll sort of ask one student, maybe a second student, ever possibly a third, somehow get the right answer or have to round up a little themselves and then move on to the next question.
Hmm.
Or they do believe in independent practice and they push it out to kids using a handout or something
Hmm.
like workbook. And the kids do the best they can. The teacher runs around the room
Hmm.
and it's all well intentioned. But now what we can do is on the student side, a kid describes it best often. It's like the handout is talking to me.
Hmm.
So the teacher, we first, I should say, we start by identifying the hardest thinking part of the lesson. Like we don't want the whole thing to be AI powered. We want to find the part that is frankly most at risk of being watered down, again, with best of intentions, but because people are worried about how hard it is. And that's the part that we want to make accessible and ultimately get all kids
And that's
engaged in.
also the part that diversity of student learning needs demands different supports for that.
Right. And what we know from the national research on HQIM is the part that's getting skipped or modified
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
a lot of places. So we feel good about keeping the rigor of the text and test. But now on the student side, kids work together in partners. This is another, like, again, important point for us from a values perspective. We want more discourse in an ELA classroom, not less.
Hmm.
So we're talking to each other. I saw beautiful full small group discussions that were student leaders. It could be partners, small group, but they're talking about the questions from the curriculum. And then they're independently accountable, typing their responses into Mojo like their handout. The difference now is that they get up to 3 rounds, if they need it, of real-time feedback and if they need it, scaffolded support. So
Hmm.
Mojo affirms, good job noticing this. Then we have this light bulb step, which is what we studied what great teachers do, which is often that quick little insight or moment of metacognition.
Hmm.
Like, this is actually good job noticed saying what happened in this paragraph, but this is asking you why. Like it's
Hmm.
bridging to an author's purpose question or it's trying to define a character trait. There are a number of sort of light bulb moves that have to
Yeah.
happen and then they give the next just right question. And if the kid's still struggling, you get to a point where ultimately you get a sentence starter.
So talk us through how this fits in the lesson, like from a just practical standpoint, what happens?
So the teacher teaches the beginning parts of the lesson, a warm up, a
Mhm.
vocabulary. Often they're reading a portion of the text together, doing some kind of initial engagement with
No
it.
mojo involved in that
No
portion.
mojo involved. And
Mhm.
that's for vision reasons in terms of how we would like it. But when we get to this meaty part, which is often about 25 minutes, in EL it's work time B, often in Wit and Wisdom it's one of the learn activities, varies by curriculum. That's when they get there, they go from the static version, the handout, if you will, to this dynamic, interactive, and as needed differentiated version. And kids work together in their partners or small groups, talking then typing. And let me just show you. This is an absolutely amazing poem from Langston Hughes, Mother to Son. It's being used by the curriculum to understand metaphor and figurative language. And so it's the same objective from the curriculum for this part of the lesson is now we get to dig in on a close read and understand the choices the authors makes, particularly with this figurative language. And I think we'll link this experience so anybody who actually wants to be a sixth grader can experience it for themselves. But the first thing Mojo asks you to do is to annotate. You do that. And then there's a question about the author's word choice. So again, we've already read it together as a class, and now we're digging in. Why do you think the poet chose these specific words, splinters, board saw, places no carpet? Kids will often say something like, to show the mother's life is hard. I would encourage anybody who tries this for themselves, be different versions of sixth graders and see what happens. So we got what kids like to call the donut, or the New Yorkers call the bagel. Well, you can see up top, and the teacher can see this when we get to the teacher dashboard. This is something we've worked a lot on, which is to get this feedback right. So we have partial understanding. That's what that donut represents. And so Mojo Affirm with a quick little emoji here with that looks like a little dude climbing a wall. There are a million of them. We got right, the mother's life is hard. This is that light bulb step I was talking about, or like the moment of metacognition, which is the poet could have just written life was hard. But instead, he used images like splinters and torn boards. Why do you think he chose to use those specific images instead of just telling us directly? This is what takes so much time, Emily, and it's not just the generic.
For your team you're talking about.
There are question-specific rubrics, like for what constitutes a quality answer, and then
that's not just the LLMs.
No. The LLM is characterizing the student response relative to a question-specific rubric. That's one of the big game changers here. What it's now pushing me to is the author's craft of this. So I got the theme or the message. I did not get the author's craft. So it's to have us experience or feel the pain of the challenge or something like that. Now I've closed my donut. And I get moved on to the next question. If I'd still struggled, I could have gotten another round of feedback with more scaffolding, would have gone to a sentence starter.
But that's it, three attempts.
3 attempts. We've done a bunch of A/B testing of that. And after 3 attempts, we lose student motivation. And a huge part of this common theme is how much thinking, reading, and writing can we get to do, which ties a lot to their motivation and their effort. And they like this. There's my nice little star. And then let's pop over to the teacher experience. Yep. So on the teacher side, our North Star on the teacher side is teacher efficacy. It is a lot of tools want to save teachers time. We want to save teachers time. We do save them time. But our belief in service of teacher retention as the big goal is we all stay doing things that we feel we're doing well, especially those of us who are teachers. We got into this because we want to make a difference for kids, and how that feels on a daily, monthly, annual basis matters a lot based on how effective I feel I am, and therefore how students are feeling about the instruction.
So I can see, if I'm a teacher, I can see whether a kid has a donut or a bagel. Tell me what yellow and red mean.
Yeah, so
can
red
I see the
means
student responses?
Yeah, so red does not mean wrong in our paradigm. Red means that you have not engaged with Mojo for up to 3 minutes. And so because for us, the threshold issue is engagement. In a class of 28 students, to be able to immediately identify those students that may look like they're working, but they're not actually working is huge. And the teacher first goes to those kiddos and checks in. Then you go to a kid who's yellow, and you can be yellow for a couple different reasons. These are adults here who took the same demo. Folks will be able to. We know kids have bad habits when it comes to ed tech. They will go, yes, no, pizza. They can't just click through Mojo. You have to give the open responses. But this one's saying IDK. If you want to say IDK once, we actually encourage kids not to do that, because if they just put their best thinking in, they'll get feedback. But what we don't want is a kid sitting there IDKing, yes, no pizza, through their entire activity. So they'll show up yellow. That will be the next priority for the teacher. They could also get there because they're confused but trying, aka wrong, but it's not an effort issue. And you can immediately see what the students' responses are and then relative to the criteria for success for that particular question.
Mhm.
Orange means cut and paste, or if they say something inappropriate, or if we think it's actually they're using AI to, there's a
Mhm.
college level syntax flag. There are a couple things that we just want to flag for teacher review. If, by the way, as a teacher, I don't agree, we want very much want teachers to stay mentally and practically engaged. They can
Mhm.
change the score
Mhm.
for a student. The other thing that's so kids work together in their partners or small groups for about 12 or 15 minutes during this part of the lesson. The teacher's actively circulating, going to the kids who most need their help. Every class is wonderfully different, but because the kids like Mojo and their 85% of kids and their partners are humming,
Mhm.
and the teacher knows right away, these are the 15% of kids who need my help, and this is what they need my
Where
help
I'm
with.
going to focus. Yeah.
Then the teacher jumps over here, and Mojo in real time analyzes all the student work in the class and surfaces the two biggest misconceptions. And so in this case, these adults were doing a good job playing kiddos. There, many students describe the staircase only as difficult or a dark place, but do not recognize it as a symbol for the mother's life journey and then the connection to the theme of perseverance. What we do here is tee up a discussion question. Mojo always tees up two misconceptions and two
Mhm.
possible discussion questions.
So
We,
that's not a
again,
discussion question going to kids. That's for the teacher to deliver live. Is that right?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's part of it is, we think of Mojo as both a kind of an embedded tutor on the teacher, on the kid side, but on the teacher side, it's your assistant. If you had a magical power, you would hand all those handouts in real time to your assistant and say, tell me what the biggest trends are and make a
Mhm.
suggestion for me. I'm still the teacher. I'm still in charge.
Mhm.
But yes, we think the right move at this point, the teacher would pause, which is very easy to do from the dashboard, pause the class discussion, choose which, pause the class from working with Mojo. If they don't pause, the kids keep going.
Keep
So then
going.
we need to pause. And then they choose which of these questions they think will have the most impact on their class, and they ask the class discussion.
So cool.
Then they fast forward kids to a target task, which is almost always writing. The kids get up to 3 rounds of writing on their feedback. If they get a 3 out of 3, they get a GIF. We don't overly gamify Mojo, but we totally believe in praise for quality student work. And then often classes end with a celebration. So Mojo will also look across the student work and pull exemplary responses for particular questions. So here you can see one. And so classes end with celebrations. They also can pull from the culminating writing task as well.
So great. Thank you for
That's a
showing
whirlwind tour.
a quickie tour, and we'll make sure to link the demo so people can experience it themselves. You referenced impact, but let's hear about that more fully, Dacia. Tell us what you know about the impact and what you think is driving it.
So, what we know about impact is we have had two independent efficacy studies that are done, both of which are linked on our website if folks want to see them. One in Sumner County, Tennessee, one in Aldine ISD. In Sumner County, there was an 8 percentage point difference on the state test between the kids who used Mojo and those that didn't, which is outlier in terms of what I'm used to
The
seeing in
last
terms
20
of
years of American
the last
education.
20 years.
Yeah.
You can improve ELA achievement, but it's normally a
Yeah.
harder go than that. And then on the Aldine actually saw a 10 percentage point difference on the
Mm.
STAR test. Both of these are state tests, not some additional special assessment. And using a matched comparison quasi-experimental design. They both met the ESSER Tier 2 standard for evidence of impact, which I think in terms of AI-powered reading products, only Coursemojo and one other have achieved that level
That
of evidence.
level.
And I appreciate when people say it's too early to evaluate AI products. Certainly the products are evolving. I
Mhm.
mean, our where we start the year is not where we end the year. We're so much better as a result of teacher and student feedback. I think we're still working with kids and we should be accountable for outcomes and we should do our darndest to measure them and to have them independently assessed. The other thing to call out about these studies is they also looked at subpopulations of
Mhm.
students. So in the case of Sumner, the students with IEPs
Mhm.
closed their historical achievement gap by 2/3. The
Mhm.
kids who were free and reduced lunch by almost half.
Mhm.
In the case of Aldine, they did a special analysis on the what Texas calls emergent bilingual
Mhm.
students or multilingual learners. And they had the same sort of 10 percentage point gain. Sometimes you
Uh-huh.
see those kids not actually participating in that kind of overall gain. And then you asked sort of what do I think is making the difference, which is
Mhm.
something we ask ourselves all the time. I think it's three things. One is because you're starting with quality text and tasks, it's about how much can we get the kids to engage? How
Hmm.
much thinking, reading, and writing can we get them to do?
Hmm.
And they like Mojo.
Hmm.
The student feedback on Mojo is very positive. They like being able to work with their partner, which not every teacher feels comfortable doing, absent that visibility into
Yeah.
what every kid's actually doing, so you can ensure they're on task. So I think the
When I
learning
saw
mode,
it in action and when I've seen it several times, students seem to like the feedback. Like they
yeah,
like getting feedback.
they like the affirmation, they like the feedback, they like that Mojo's helping them fix their mistakes.
Hmm.
So they just do more. They
Yeah.
just keep peeling the onion of these rich, complex texts.
Hmm.
And they know, again, if we go back to the handout as the alternative, they don't even know if they're right or wrong,
Hmm. Right.
much less how to fix it. Like they
Yeah.
think their initial answer is good enough, or
Yeah.
they're doing the best they can. So that's on this, it's increased engagement.
Yeah.
The second, as you're pointing out, is increased feedback and the
Yeah.
opportunity to revise based on that feedback,
Immediately.
which I
Hmm.
think is something that's underappreciated. Like just
Hmm.
grading after the fact doesn't get you there. You have to actually revise and encode success, especially in writing, but in general. And then on the third thing is on the teacher side, we're just helping teachers be more effective. So they're way more strategic in how they use precious class time.
And the
Every
cognitive load
kid
on the teacher seems really quite different. They get an assist
they get
on
an
the
assist
hard
and
choice.
but they still get to do the joyful stuff.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's like you get this little alley-oop from your assistant and then you still get to spike the ball. So
Hmm.
you're still facilitating the class discussion, but now first of all, kids feel more able. On our student survey, it's like 86% of kids say they're more willing to participate in a class discussion after
Hmm.
working with Mojo. So they're sort of primed. Then
Ready.
the just right question to
Hmm.
ask, or you've had a choice of just right questions.
Hmm.
So I think we're helping teachers use their time even more strategically.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It's awesome to see what you have built, and we're so glad to be learning about a bunch of different products. And I do think I've had the chance to see Mojo more than many other products, and I've seen how much you've improved it over time. So I look forward to seeing even where it goes from here.
Thank you. The next frontier for us are leader tools
Hmm.
and additional insights to help teachers kind of after the fact.
Yeah.
So excited for that. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Dacia.